Hi everyone, it's good to have you again. Join Smart Lesson Niger online virtual lesson for today with your regular host, Mr. Otaibe. Thank you so much for being present. Your presence in the lesson is highly appreciated. The subject is basic science and the topic is Family Health 2, Environmental Sanitation, Methods of Refuse Disposal. Remember, we started the second symposium of family health after the first, which was personal cleanliness, and the second is environmental sanitation. Under the environmental sanitation, we had a first class on waste, and in that class we learned that waste are of three types. We have refuse, we have sewage, and we have effluent. And in this second aspect of environmental sanitation, we are concentrating on methods of refuse disposal, and so that's the focus of the lesson. So let's kick off right away as we engage the introduction that will expose us to the meaning of waste disposal. Like you can see, waste disposal is the removal of waste from our surroundings in order to prevent infections and diseases. So the removal of waste of any type, whether sewage, effluent, or refuse from our surroundings, so that the infections and diseases associated with them do not get to us, we refer to the process as waste disposal. So waste disposal is the removal of waste, whether effluent, sewage, or refuse from our surroundings, so that the infections or the diseases associated with them do not get to us. And so that's waste disposal. Now we want to look at methods of waste disposal. Methods of waste disposal. And so the comments introducing the methods of waste disposal says there are different methods of disposing waste. We have different methods we use in disposing waste. The method used at a time depends on the nature of the waste and environmental implications. So among the different methods available, the one you use at a time depends on the nature of the waste. Is the waste a liquid or a solid? Is the waste biodegradable or non-biodegradable? Is the waste combustible? Can it burn, or is not combustible? So we put all these into consideration before we adopt a given method to dispose a given type of waste. And of course, talking of environmental implications, we look at the disposal method we are going to use. Will it pose pollution? Will it constitute pollution to the environment? Is it going to cause health hazards to people living around or not? That's what we mean by environmental implications. So we have specific methods for disposing refuse, being solid waste. Then we also have specific methods for disposing sewage, being liquid waste, that are different from the methods we use in disposing solid waste, talking of refuse. And so this lesson, we concentrate on methods we use in disposing solid waste, talking of refuse. And that's the basis of this subheading: methods of disposing refuse. Methods of disposing refuse. And so let's review the methods one after the other, starting with this very first one called incineration. So one method we use in disposing solid waste is called incineration. And what do we mean by incineration? This involves burning combustible refuse inside an incinerator. There is a device we call incinerator. That's what you are seeing on the artistic impression, the picture on the slide. Incinerator is a device where you put refuse that can burn. Yes, combustion means burning. Burning is called combustion. That's another name for combustion. And so refuse that can burn, for example, paper. Yes, paper and plastic to an extent, although plastic is better recycled. Wood materials that can burn, we can load them into a device called incinerator. Then we set the refuse ablaze. As it's burning, the incinerator controls the smoke generated to a collection point so that it does not mess up the environment. It does not pollute the environment to endanger the health of people around. And so an incinerator is a device that allows you to burn waste, refuse, waste, combustible solid material in a controlled way that does not constitute pollution to the environment. So that's the incinerator. You can see the attendant opening the incinerator, and the refuse inside is burning, and the waste is the smoke from the burning and the products, the gaseous product, talking of perhaps carbon monoxide, CO2 and others, they are being collected in a controlled way and being channeled to a collection point such that they do not constitute hazard to people around. And so this is the standard way of burning waste, combustible waste, not the ones we do in local urban settings or rural areas where we gather refuse together, set the refuse ablaze, and the smoke reduces visibility. The carbon monoxide is constituting health hazard to people around. That's not eco-friendly. It's not environmentally friendly. Instead, we use incinerator. Incinerator will help to control the burning so that people around will not be endangered. And take note, it's not all types of refuse we burn in an incinerator. We only burn combustible materials like papers, wood, plastic to an extent, and others. Something like broken bottle, metal scrap, they do not burn, and so you cannot burn such in an incinerator. And so we want to take note of that. So this is one method we dispose solid waste in the environment. And so that's that for that. So we now make progress to the next one. This is another incinerator. The incinerator you saw in the first statistic impression is the industrial incinerator. Yeah, incinerator you can have in industrial setting like hospital, breweries, and other companies. But we also have portable ones we can use in the house. That's what you have in this current picture, in this current artistic impression. This domestic or household incinerator, the one you can use in the house. It's usually smaller and it's portable. So you can see the fire resulting from the burning of the refuse that has been loaded into the incinerator. And so the smoke and the gases as product from the combustion is being channeled through the pipe. You can see the pipe on top to a collection point in such a way that it does not get to an individual to inhale to endanger the health of the person. And so that's that for that. And so we now make progress now to another method of disposing refuse, talking of landfill. And so what's a landfill? A landfill involves burying biodegradable refuse in the soil in a place called landfill. We have a place dedicated for collecting waste, and in that same place, the waste is being buried to decompose naturally under the influence of microorganisms. And so a place where waste are being dumped and buried for natural decomposition, we refer to it as landfill. And so what happens in landfill? In landfill, waste from various sources, that's refuse specifically from various sources, are being brought and heaped on the site, that's the landfill site, as a dump site. Then in that same landfill, we have machines that can cut the soil. Like you can see on the picture, that's a machine that can excavate the soil. And when the soil is excavated, the waste is being introduced into the soil and being buried. But sometimes there may be a protective material that is put in the excavated hole before the waste is being introduced, so that it does not leak to join the underground water to pollute the underground water. And so the machine is used to cut the ground, cut the soil, then a protective lining is being introduced, and the waste is now being put on top of the protective lining, and soil is introduced to bury the waste, and the waste will be decomposing, and in the process of decomposing, it does not get to individuals around because it's being cut off of access by the soil that is covering it. And so That's what you are seeing in the picture. Yes, you can see the machine, the device, the heavy duty machine cutting the soil, and the waste will be introduced after a protective lining has been put on the excavated hole, and soil will be introduced to cover it, and the refuse will be decomposing naturally. So a place where such activities take place, we refer to the place as landfill. And landfill can be very dignified to be a classic engineering facility in such a way that it can run in an urban setting. Yes, it can be a means of refuse disposal in urban setting. You are going to see such sophisticated type in the next diagram, where you even have workers that are employed to run the facility. Yes, in this urban setting of landfill, you see waste being brought in and is piled up as a heap. Then at a time, you now have a machine that cuts the soil. Part of the waste is introduced into the excavated hole and is being buried for decomposition. And of course, the waste that are applicable for such disposal are biodegradable waste. Biodegradable waste like paper, wood, timbers, soap, food materials, and so many others. The ones that microorganisms can work on to decompose inside the soil. And so you can see the collection points, you can see the point in which the waste is being spread, and the last picture at the bottom is showing where a machine is cutting the soil, where the waste will be introduced and be buried for natural decomposition. So this facility is called landfill. We can have a local type like in rural areas, and we can also have a sophisticated engineering type that you can have in urban settings, township settings, used for disposing refuse. And so that's that for that. And so the basic point is that in landfill, waste is being buried to get decayed inside the soil, unlike incineration, in which waste is being burnt and the product being channeled to a collection point as a way of eliminating the waste. And so we now make progress now to the next method of waste, that's refuse disposal. The next method of disposing solid waste, that's recycling. We have recycling. And so in recycling involves converting or changing waste like papers, broken bottles, plastics, and metal scraps into useful products through a recycling machine. This one, we are talking of waste being put in a machine, and a machine will now convert it to another product that is useful in human endeavors, in human life quests or human adventures. And so something like broken bottles can be put in a machine, then the machine will grind it. It will grind the broken bottle under the influence of heat and change it to glass. And glass you can use to make new products like windows, cups, and so many others, even glass plates or whatever. And so that's that for that. Then paper of different types can be recycled in a machine to form another plain paper that can be used to produce newspapers, or maybe fortified with other materials to generate cartons used for packaging. And so that's it. The metal scraps can be recycled into new metal sheets that can be used to produce things like roofing sheets, cutlass, and so many others. And so that's what we're talking about. And so when you carry waste, especially waste that you cannot burn, waste that cannot decompose, that's where we have the lives of metals, plastics, and broken bottles. You put it in a machine will now change it, grind it, and convert it to another useful product. You are recycling the waste. That's waste recycling. Remember, paper can also be recycled even if paper is biodegradable. If you are recycling paper as a method of disposing the waste, then you are taking advantage of the economic value of the paper. Instead of wasting it through decomposition or decay in the soil, you change it to something you can sell to make money. That's what we're talking about. And so that's recycling. You can see the recycling machine in the picture. you can see broken bottles, and the broken bottles is being grinded, and as it's being grinded, it's being converted to glass that can be used to make things like windows, cups, and other things. And so that's that for that. So we now go to the next one. We have this other method number 4, talking of composting. What do we mean by composting? This involves converting food waste. Please take note, food waste generated from food materials, that is plant and animal products that are used as food. For example, vegetables, eggshells, then tuber skin, that is peel out from the skin you peel out from yam, or maybe potato and others. These are food waste. And so when you carry food waste and you change it to decayed organic mixture, that decayed organic mixture is a compost, and you can use it to improve soil fertility by adding it to the soil. So when you add it to the soil, it will supply nutrients to the soil, and the soil become more fertile and will be able to support the growth of plants faster, and they will yield better, they will produce better. And so that's that. So compost is a mixture of organic materials that are gotten from decay of food waste, plants and animal food waste. Yes, that's what we refer to as compost. So we can actually convert food waste, food refuse, to compost for use in agricultural activities, for use as manure in the farm. That's it. And so we want to take note of that. So composting is the process of converting food waste, the likes of vegetable, eggshell, peel from yam, banana, plantain, and so many others. We convert them into decayed organic mixture called compost, which serve as manure in increasing soil fertility. But then, how do we do it? We have 2 ways. We have direct method and indirect method. The direct method is what you are seeing on this artistic impression. In the direct method, the food waste as trash is thrown into the garden directly. Yes, the farm garden is thrown into it, and as they are decomposing on the soil, they will be adding nutrients to the soil. They will be forming compost. Yes, they will make the soil more darkened and fertile. Yes, they increase the humus content of the soil, and the soil become fertile to support plant growth. That one is direct method. The one in which you throw the trash from food products, the vegetables and other things from food products as waste, you throw it to the farm, the soil in a farm garden, and they'll be decaying and making the soil to become more fertile. That's direct method. But like it happens in urban setting, we have an indirect method. In urban setting, what happens is the waste from the food is introduced into a container isolated somewhere from the house but close to the house, or it can even be in a garden, a farm garden close to the house in the urban setting. Yes, you can see it on the picture. The lady is introducing food waste like eggshell and vegetable into the compost container. You can see the compost container made of wood. She has opened it, she's introducing it, and that's how she will add soil sample, loamy soil will be added, and the thing will be allowed to decay for some time. After being decayed for some time, the substance will now become a darkened mixture called compost, and that's how you now collect it and transfer it to the farm, add it to the soil in the target farm. You have to use it. This is indirect method because the compost is not formed on the soil directly. Instead, it's being formed in a container before being transferred to the soil that is to be used to increase its fertility. That's it. And so when you prepare the compost in a container before transferring to the soil where it's to be used as manure, then that's indirect method. Whereas the direct method is throwing the waste to the soil so that the compost formation will be taking place right there on the soil and encouraging the plants to grow faster. And so we want to take note of that. We have another artistic impression of the urban setting of composting. This a compost bin where the man is introducing waste food like vegetable, eggshells, banana shell, and so many others. He's introducing it to add to the one that was already there. And if you check very well, the one that was already in the container has decayed to become black and is ready for use. And so that's how it can be transferred to the soil to encourage plant growth. Then when you introduce new one like this, there is always provision to stir. You stir so that it will mix well to make the decomposition of the new one faster. Yes. Or better still, a part of the old one is transferred, is diverted out for use. Then you introduce new one to start again. Anyhow, that's composting. So that's what we call composting. And so when the decayed mixture is formed, ready for use as manure, we call it compost. That's what we call compost. So compost is actually manure that is formed from food waste through decay process. Yes. But we can also have manure from feces. Yes. Animal droppings. We'll talk about that in our subsequent class when we start looking at methods of sewage and effluent disposal. And so that's that for that. Then we want to go to the next one now, which is biogas production. Biogas production is one other method we can use to clear off refuse in the environment. And what does it involve? This involves using bacteria to digest or break down refuse to gases like methane, CH4, that's the formula, or carbon dioxide, CO2, in a digester or bioreactor. Yes, you can see it on the artistic impression. You can see it on the picture. That tank you are seeing, the shorter tank, is called a digester or a bioreactor. And so what normally happens is you can collect waste, especially biodegradable waste, and put it inside the bioreactor. When you load it inside the bioreactor, then you now introduce a culture of bacteria. It could be aerobic digesting bacteria or anaerobic digesting bacteria. Any of them. We have two types of digester, aerobic digester and anaerobic digester. If you are doing aerobic digester, then you should be expecting CO2 as the gas to be produced. That's the biogas you get, along with steam, that's water in the form of vapor. Then we also have anaerobic digester. Aerobic digester will give you CO2 or and steam to an extent, while the anaerobic digester will give you methane. Yes, methane, and you could also have CO2 to an extent, but the basic product will be methane. And so in the process of the waste evacuation, the refuse is loaded inside the bioreactor, and the bacteria to digest it is introduced to add to the refuse as a culture, and the content is not being regulated at a given temperature. Before you know it, the bacteria will break down all the waste constituting the refuse, the organic biodegradable waste constituting the refuse. It will break them down into CO2, CH4, that's methane and carbon dioxide, and they will now be channeled, the gases will now be channeled to another tank called collection tank. The gas will now be in that tank. From that tank, we now have a shipping vehicle that comes to collect the gas and is taken out for use in industrial processes. The methane is used as fuel for cooking. Yes, it's used as fuel for cooking. In that case, we call it natural gas, although you can also have it from another source. Then while the CO2 can be collected and taken for distribution to breweries, carbonation companies, companies that add CO2 to beverages to achieve carbonation. As a way of achieving refreshing taste in beverages like Coke, Fanta, Sprite, 7-Up, and so many other products in the market. And so we can convert waste to biogas. Instead of allowing the waste to remain in the environment, you collect the waste, use bacteria to digest them to gases that are even useful in technology. That's what we mean by biogas production. And so two examples of biogas that we've mentioned here are CO2, that's carbon dioxide, and of course CH4, talking of methane. We want to take note of them. And so biogas converts biodegradable refuse waste to gases that are useful in technology, and it employs bacteria to achieve the decomposition of the waste to gases. And so in summary, the method we use in disposing solid waste, that's refuse, includes 1. We have what we call biogas production. Then again, we saw another method that has to do with composting. We saw composting, changing it to organic mixture that can be used in improving soil fertility. Then we also saw incineration, burning the waste in a controlled way that it will not constitute pollution. Then we also saw the methods that involve recycling, changing the waste to useful products that can be used in human adventures, and so many others. These are 5 basic methods of disposing solid waste, 5 basic methods of refuse disposal in environmental sanitation. And so we want to take note of them. And so that's the size of the lesson. In the next lesson, we'll now have a follow-up, which is method of disposing liquid waste, that is methods of sewage and effluent disposal. And so on the evaluation stage now, you are recommended to log on to your CBT test, that's computer-based test that has been published to drill you on the lesson, so that the content of the lesson will sink down in you. The resource gems will become permanent in you, ready for use in your external examinations sooner or later. I'll see you again in the next lesson series. Let's make time together to learn something new on a different subject platform.